Mississippi State tasked me with Coastal One Health. This is a brand new program, and you'll sort of see as I go through my presentation why One Health is a good fit for me, because I have so many interests in so many different things that One Health is a big, nice, broad umbrella where we can really fit a lot of these interesting research things. But ultimately, we're all connected. Human health is connected to environmental health, to wildlife health. So, but first, I thought it would be fun to I get this question quite often, I grew up in a very small town in Mississippi, and this is me, this kid here, growing up on a farm, and then the next thing, now I've been in a documentary about my research. And so getting from Potts Camp to world-renowned marine mammal expert is an interesting journey that I thought might be worth a few minutes to share. So I'm from Potts Camp, which is located up here, this tiny little spot. About 400 people live there. My family's been there so long, we can barely know when we arrived. It's just, that's where we're from. And so because I loved animals, I was told, go be a veterinarian. That's what you do. You love animals, you be a vet. I'm like, okay, I'll follow your rules. You don't leave home, and you should be a vet. Okay. So I went to Mississippi State, which was leaving home, but still somewhat close, and was a dairy science major because that was going to allow me to fast track into vet school. And then during my time there, I was told, as you're getting ready to apply to vet school, it would be really cool if you had an interesting animal that you could put on there. Cows are okay, but vet school, they want something that's interesting. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I could think about an interesting animal experience. And in my head, as a little kid, like many kids in Mississippi, I'd gone down to the coast and watched the dolphins jumping. And I'm like, dolphins are fun. I don't know, maybe dolphins would be cool. And so just for fun, I applied to an internship at Walt Disney World. I was a dairy science major at Mississippi State, and I applied to a marine biology internship. And I still, to this day, have no idea why, but they picked me. Me and 5 other people out of the whole country got to go and spend 6 months at Walt Disney World. And needless to say, that really changed the direction and course of my life. And this is what I tell students now. I'm like, listen, if a kid like me can get this internship, then and I can be a marine biologist, anybody can be it. So a little hard work. It was scary leaving home and I moved to Orlando, which I thought was like the biggest city I've ever seen. It was very scary, but I persevered. And so I had a chance to work with lots of marine life, and 6 months, went back to Mississippi State, changed my degree program, my undergrad, to biology. Went ahead and decided, just in case I don't make it to vet school, maybe I won't be a dairy science forever. And then after graduation, I became a zookeeper and an animal trainer. It was like a whole world had opened up to me that I didn't even know existed. I could work with all of these animals. And typical me, I'm hyper, even though I'm actually a pretty chill person. I'm ADHD when it comes to research and things. I just was like, there's so many animals I want to work with. And so I moved to Florida. I worked with elephants. I worked with belugas. I worked with dolphins and walruses, and just sort of like kept running around all excited to get as much experience as I could. And ultimately, I love this saying, don't stop questioning and being curious about things is one of the things that has really served me well, is just a nonstop craving of information. And so after playing for a while as a trainer, I ended up able to go back to to school as a PhD student in animal dairy science, back at Animal Dairy Science with Mississippi State, but this time focusing on especially dolphin reproduction. As a trainer, I realized that at the time, we didn't know a whole lot about dolphin reproduction, and so I applied a lot of the knowledge that I had at Mississippi State with cows to dolphins, and ended up getting into that program. It took 8 years, but I got there, and I ended up, my dissertation is the reproductive biology of the bottlenose dolphin from Mississippi State University, focusing again on the reproduction. This also led to a new career where I worked for zoos and aquariums with marine mammals, helping them with population management, reproduction, and research. And this is where I realized too that having been a trainer myself really helped bridge that gap between research and what it takes to work alongside these animals. But it also provided me with some pretty cool opportunities. For example, here is a giraffe. Giraffes are pretty skittish. I'm doing an ultrasound of a pregnant giraffe that the trainers had trained her. So every day I would go and hang out by the giraffe barn, let the giraffe get used to me until I could finally do an ultrasound of her baby. Killer whale, walrus, which we'll get into. So the other thing that I think worked well for me was I approached it because I love animals. I love them. It's something that's very important to me, and to care about them and to approach them and to treat one as an individual. So I took a very kind, gentle, caring approach, working closely with the trainers when it comes to reproduction. So this dolphin is trained just to lay there and take a nap while I ultrasound them, and so we can actually see inside and all the reproductive organs. And I studied lots and lots about from breeding all the way up to pregnancy. And if you want to click this clip here, this is a ultrasound of a baby dolphin, and this is the mouth here, and you can see him swimming around, moving his head back and forth. And so I did a lot of pregnancy monitoring and understanding fetal growth and development. And these little guys actually swim around in their mom, which is really, really cool. All right, you can move off of that, maybe. Okay, let's go back one. Okay, there we go. And then, so anyway, really, really cool, very interesting, learning a lot about these things. And then I got my passion, really found where mission-driven research with zoo and aquarium animals can help with conservation. The knowledge that we can get by studying these animals, these hands-on animals, not unlike our cows and our horses, really can help the wild species. And that just became my new mantra of, we're going to have these animals, we're taking care of them, they're providing education, but they're also providing research. And so this is just a really fun little project that I participated in, and a master's student ended up getting her master's thesis done on this. But one day I'm watching our dolphins in the pools, and this one dolphin was very pregnant. She was really done. She wanted that baby out yesterday. And she lived with her mom and this group and her aunt and all of these dolphins, same dolphins. But for whatever reason, she went out into the middle of the pool and just started yelling out her signature whistle. Dolphins have this whistle. You hear about dolphin whistles. These whistles are really reserved for if they're under stress, they'll whistle. If they're meeting a new dolphin, it's sort of a whistle, but it's not something that they just do. And so can you click this audio here? That's a signature whistle. So she's just out in the middle of the pool screaming her signature whistle. Why? Why would that be? And other people had heard this before with a pregnant dolphin, and we just assumed maybe it was because she was uncomfortable and she was just screaming for no reason. But what we learned was, the question that popped up was, wait a minute, baby dolphins come out precocial, they come out swimming, and they come out whistling. And so our hypothesis became, was she basically imprinting with her unborn dolphin baby? And it turned out, yes. It turns out that dolphins do teach their unborn baby their signature whistle, which becomes a contact call after the birth of the baby. And so the baby came out not completely unknowing, came out at least knowing, that's mom. That's mom. Okay, and it was just a really, really interesting project. And so just a little more information. Got a little bit of press about that, and very, very cool project. And then same thing. I had an opportunity to work with a killer whale who lived with a dolphin. And we won't go down the rabbit hole of all of these things of whether killer whales should or shouldn't be. This killer whale she was born in France at an aquarium and was shipped over to Northern California. And there were no other killer whales with her, so she learned to live with dolphins. And dolphins, she thought of herself as a dolphin. And so what I studied was the interspecies communication of reproduction, because the male dolphin that she lived with seemed to understand when she was cycling. So I actually got a paper published about that behavior. That even though killer whales and dolphins are they're all dolphins. Killer whales are just really big dolphins. There was some interspecies communication there, and she also loved to feed her dolphin fish. And so it got to, like, there was this one dolphin that she really, really loved a lot that would go in with her, and she would feed him so much food that he wouldn't take anything from us. He got so fat. So we had to balance it, where every now and then we had to, like, all right, you got to take a break from your favorite whale. Anyway, that resulted in a paper. And then one of the best things that we did while we were at this particular California location was she really needed to be with other killer whales. This is not, dolphins are great, but she's a killer whale, and she should be with other killer whales. So we were able to work it out that we could send her from this Northern California park to a SeaWorld park where she could live with other killer whales. And when she got there, what was really interesting is they published a paper on her because she knew how to speak dolphin. She squeaked dolphin language, and she didn't remember killer whale language. And so she went down to SeaWorld and taught all those other killer whales dolphin, but she also learned killer whales after a time. So if you play this quick little video here, you'll hear some of these vocals. This is her speaking dolphin. This is her at the show with her dolphin friend. That's her kiss. This is her at SeaWorld. She learned to talk killer whale. That's a killer whale. So the paper was able to show what was interesting about this is that what we know about most killer whales is through research that's been done, in wild populations. And we know that they lived in very distinct family groups with very distinct dialects. But what this showed is that they are adaptable enough that, let's say you did have a killer whale that ended up in a different group, they can adjust some of those vocals to match the group that they move into. So it was an interesting piece that we were able to do. And then for walruses, again, I fell in love with walruses. They're fascinating creatures. And participating in these projects to show we had access to these big giant animals that are very difficult to get access to in the wild. Besides the fact that they live in the Arctic, they're giant animals, incredibly dangerous. We were able to train walruses. And so one of the things I was tasked with is figuring out why these 3 walruses in Northern California had never had a baby. They were adults, they were mature, but they had never had a baby. And it turns out walrus babies are pretty rare, especially in North American zoos. And so working with the trainers, we were able to collect blood samples. I monitored their hormones. I monitored ultrasound and realized that basically it's a photoperiod thing. So those of you who are familiar with like horse breeding or sheep breeding, seasonal breeders are very tied to what they see with light. And walruses, being in the Arctic, have 24 hours of darkness part of the year, 24 hours of daylight part of the year. And those cues were what was controlling reproduction. And when we brought them down to the US as babies, they were all orphan calves. Basically, we just took them out of their photoperiod environment. And so they ended up healthy, just fine, but out of sync when it came to reproduction. And then here's just a couple of fun things. If you start with this video here, many people don't know that walruses have throat sacs, and they can actually inflate their throat. And this is our male. You see him, all of that? He is filling his air sacs up. And this is a reproductive display that they do, and they also send out vocals through those air sacs that reverberate through the environment. And so that was pretty cool. And then if you click this video here, this is what it looked like if I was doing an ultrasound with the walrus. We just had them trained. Has anyone here seen 51st States? Okay, well, this is the facility where 51st States was filmed. So Savukak was Jocko, and then this is Siku and Ukuk. So if you see that movie, you'll recognize some of this. But they were we were able to train them. And then click this other video here. We were able to train them to be very close.
They only have a narrow window during which they can conceive, a matter of days, so timing will be everything. Holley runs regular checks to monitor how they're doing.
Okay. I'm ready. All right, Siku, open.
I was collecting saliva for hormone tests. So one of the things we can do is we take a simple swab of the inside of their mouth and around their tongue. Good. Good girl. We usually get a couple of swabs full. And this can be used to test hormone levels. Really? Science is... So that video, and then after this, I'll show you. This video was part of that documentary, and I'm going to show you a trailer for it in a minute. But I wanted to go over one more. This is... I keep screaming this, and no one seems to really pay attention, but another really cool thing that we were able to study with walruses in a captive environment was our male, the male that you saw inflating his throat sacs. He would display he would go into rut, and he was full of testosterone, and he would display, and he would sing his songs, and he was very vocal. But he learned to clap his flippers together and create this really loud clap. And we had a researcher come in from Europe who slowed that clap down to see why and how physiologically and anatomy wise could he create such a loud sound underwater. And they found that just like the pistol shrimp that does a cavitation, if any of you have ever heard of that, basically he's created a bubble that collapsed, and he's doing cavitation. This is the only mammal known to create cavitation and be able to provide this kind of sound. And so here it is right here. And you see the bubble. So he was clapping with such force to create a cavitation bubble, and it's the only mammal. I'm like, this is cool. And okay, well, all right, well, it's very cool. But this is part of their reproduction. What we believe is when they're in the Arctic, it's dark. It's 24 hours of darkness when they're breeding. And so the only way a male can get a female to know that he's interested is by singing a song, making as much noise as he can, and they set up a little territory at the surface of the water. They inflate their throat sacs, and they sing, and they sing, and they sing, and the female comes to him. And so we believe that this clapping is something they do in the wild as well. It's not clapping like what we think of, but it actually is creating this super loud, and it's very attractive to the females. Okay, so here's the trailer to the documentary. It's just sort of a fun one if you want to play this, just a couple of minutes here.
Meet Sivukak. an 18-year-old larger-than-life Pacific walrus who loves his food. And a well-fed walrus is a happy walrus. By now, he should be a dad. But things haven't worked out. Which is where Holley Muraco comes in. Together, they have a very special relationship.
Yes. Good boy.
An expert on animal reproduction, Sivukak is proving to be her toughest challenge to date. In zoos around the world, even pandas have been bred more successfully than walruses. So Holley is trying the near impossible. The secret of walrus love is a mystery, but perhaps the clues to success lie in exploring the lives of Sivukak's wild cousins. Could they hold the key to helping him have a family of his own?
I think Sivukak is going to become a dad this year. He's ready, and we're definitely ready to have that little bundle of joy walrus. So it's a very British production. It was a lot of fun. It took 2 years to film. We went to Alaska. I camped out on the tundra. I went and lived with indigenous communities and learned their subsistence way of life. It was absolutely incredible. And we did end up with a baby walrus, but unfortunately it was stillborn at birth. So it was alive up until birth. And then she had a difficult labor and the baby was born stillbirth. But we were able to understand the problems that we were having with the reproduction, and we're able to solve that with some, adjusting some photoperiod. So this is me with a wild walrus haul out. We had a grizzly bear and wolf guns at all times. Walrus capital of the world, and legit, this is America, and they can see on a pretty day. You can see Russia from your house here. And it was so cold. I'm not made for that weather. These are some of my guides. They were incredible, keeping us safe out on the ice floes. And then this is one of the little villages right here. Just take a little plane in and land when the wind is good. So absolutely incredible experience. So I have been living everywhere but my home state of Mississippi. And I had the opportunity to come back home, and I can't say how, it's an honor for me to be able to come back home and work here in our state. And so I'm so excited that Mississippi State has, provided me with this incredible research position. And I haven't been gone and seen so many things. Coming back to Mississippi, even though I visit, of course, family and things like that, I was overwhelmed at the sheer amount of diversity and habitat that Mississippi has. And I really, really appreciated it 1,000 times more by having been gone and living in other areas and coming home and realizing we have more in a little centimeter of grass than most places have, in a much larger space. And so that just became very inspiring to me. I'm so excited to be home and to learn. I'm learning about all of this wonderful stuff. And since I am based on the coast, one of my favorite things to talk about, especially with students and everyone, is look at all this watershed. Look at all this drainage. I'm sure many of you know, I still am just trying to wrap my head around it, that the fact that we're literally living at ground zero for all of this drainage from America. And this results, of course, Alabama, I love them, but they coined the term America's Amazon, which is cool, which is great. Mississippi's there too. We're all America's Amazon down here. And that's the way I like to think about it when it comes to diversity. We have an incredible place that just hasn't quite gotten the attention of, what it should be when it comes to the world. And so And then just another biodiversity, marine species in particular, when you look at the Gulf of Mexico, over 15,000 species in 1.5 million kilometers. When you compare it to, say, Hawaii, we always think, oh, Hawaii's got the most amazing marine life ever. Okay, well, we got them beat, from a sheer diversity standpoint. And so those are things that I am just still enamored with and taken with, and I still am like, this is a big deal. This is really cool. We live in an amazing place. So many cool things. And so many of you here, I'm speaking to the choir, those of you who aren't, the northern Gulf of Mexico, Mississippi Sound is what you see when you're on our coast, and then you get past the Barrier Islands and you get into the northern Gulf of Mexico. And we are home to 5 species of sea turtle. The Kemp's Ridley sea turtle, the most endangered and small species of sea turtle in the world. Mississippi Sound is nursery habitat for it. It loves it there. It eats shrimp and crabs. So it's like they are doing their best to live there. We have Kemp's Ridley turtles that call Mississippi home, loggerheads as well. We also get the occasional green and hawksbill, but we're great habitat, especially for these carnivorous sea turtles. We have coral right offshore. We have deep sea coral. We also have some smaller or some shallower species of coral that we still need to better understand. We haven't really looked under the water a lot when it comes to just offshore, especially of some of these things. And so in 2019, USM, just doing a random benthic survey, found Bank Reef, where 200 feet under the water, we have a coral reef. And that's located about 60 miles offshore. But these are things that, to me, just are inspiring and exciting and cool, and like we need to go study that. Whale sharks swim through. Whale sharks are something that is not uncommon to pass through the northern Gulf. USM is doing a great job cataloging, doing whale shark sightings. Manta rays are also not uncommon. And then when it comes to the marine mammals, we have a resident population of sperm whales that live right off our coast. They're having babies. They're living there. They're hunting. The only visual video recording of a living giant squid in North American waters was taken off of Gulfport. So we know that we have these sperm whales battling these epic battles with these giant squid. And Mississippi and the northern Gulf Coast there had a really successful whaling industry back in the 1800s. They were coming here to go hunt these sperm whales, and they were leaving off of our Mississippi coast to go do that. We have whales. We have killer whales that every now and then you'll see. We don't have an understanding of these killer whales, but we do know that they have been observed hunting small dolphin species. We also know that some fishermen say that they hunt tuna, but we don't know. NOAA has, over the past 20 years, cataloged about 30 individual killer whales, but they do seem to call the Gulf home. Need to do more study. And then I'll come back to manatees. The Rice's whale, brand new species of whale, just known to science in 2019. And I have a couple of those slides that I'll talk a little bit more about, but basically the most endangered whale in the world lives right off our coast. The Rice's whale, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then manatees. My favorite, I love manatees, big, wonderful sea cows. And it's true. When you're in Florida, so a manatee's natural habitat and natural behavior is to sort of cruise along the bottom and graze like a cow. And they're on the bottom of the water, eating. And then they come up, they take a breath, and their 2 nostrils just stick above the water, and then they're back down. The reason why every one of them get hit by boats is because they sleep very soundly. They're sound asleep in shallow water, and boats just go right over them. They don't even know they're coming. But in Florida, you look down, it's clear, you see the manatees. In Mississippi and Alabama, it's a lot harder to see manatees. So manatees come up and take a breath. If you happen to be there, that's a manatee. If you don't happen to be there, are there manatees there? Or are they not manatees? Our friends in Alabama, our researchers over in Dolphin Island, have shown that manatees are here. They're living here. They're trying to survive here. And Alabama has done a great job. I got to participate in a tagging effort where we went and caught manatees, put tags on them to better understand their movements, where they're living. And so Mississippi is right there. We can do that here too, and I think we'll be very pleasantly surprised at the number of manatees that actually are living here. And then we just need to educate our boaters and educate our homeowners on the water a little bit better on what to look for, because there's just not, it's not in your face like in Florida. So the sperm whales are primarily located, this is Mississippi coast, about right here, DeSoto Canyon at the drop-off, right at the mouth of the Mississippi. So this is where the highest density of sperm whales are located. This one was a sperm whale that beached in Alabama. They actually had to euthanize this young male. So there's some really fun stuff. And then the Rice's whale, we knew that there was this filter-feeding whale, baleen whale, in the Gulf. It was known as a Brutus whale. That's what it was always referred to. So this isn't a whale that just popped up one day. This is a species that they assumed was a Brutus whale until they were finally able to get their hands on a stranded animal, and NOAA noticed that they just looked a little different, and thanks to their hard work and effort, they were able to show, sure enough, we have a very genetically distinct, brand new species of whale, brand new to science, called the Rice. They've named it the Rice's whale after the gentleman who first saw that we had these baleen whales in the Gulf. And so their habitat, we know that they're living along the Big Bend area of Florida, but the habitat is actually, they're suspicious that it actually crosses over to where those sperm whales live as well. And so I know there's, pros and cons to expanding an endangered species range and things like that, but the reality is that most likely the rice whale does come south of Mississippi, at least in part of his life. So now that I'm here, based in Mississippi, looking at health, of course I have to understand the environmental threats and issues that are facing our marine mammals on the coast. And oil spill, harmful algal blooms, that freshwater intrusion, and probably most of all, the threat of the fresh water is one of the biggest threats that we have to our dolphin population on the coast. Dolphins are saltwater species, of course, but our dolphins that live on the Mississippi Gulf Coast are estuary dolphins that tolerate fresh, brackish, and salt. But regardless of where they are, they at some point need salt water. At some point. Usually they can live in freshwater about 30 days before the point of no return. And so Mississippi is home to these dolphins. They do not know there is an ocean. They do not have the concept that they can just swim away to another spot. So when we have polluted water pouring into the sound, or we have anthropogenic runoff, or we have fresh water, they're just going to sit there and wonder why their home feels weird. And so after that freshwater intrusion event of 2019 with Bonnie Carey, 350 dolphins died from Louisiana over to the Panhandle. Mississippi alone had 150 dolphins die. We have no idea where any of those dolphins originated from. That's the tricky part, is because we need to do more studies to understand our population of dolphins on the coast, so we have a better understanding of their site fidelity. And then we can say definitively this population is going to feel the effects. And so the group that got most of the money to study the oil spill out of California. And so the Marine Mammal Foundation, and they're mainly studying animals in Louisiana, but this is another, for me, a little bit of a rub, no offense to the California folk, but this is something where we need to be doing our own stuff in Mississippi. We don't need to import people from California to do our work for us. So, I'm always encouraging our politicians to consider in-house funding before, you send it out to someone else. And that's where I have found we have so much, we have very limited and are missing baseline data on the most basic things, like including how many dolphins live in the Mississippi Sound. The Mississippi Sound is a massive place. Realistically, it is actually broken up into multiple different groups of dolphins. It's not one dolphin swimming the entire sound, of course, putting on the brakes at the Alabama-Louisiana lines. But those are just some things that we need to understand. We need to do, some better jobs of getting that kind of study. And so that's where I'm coming in now. Dolphins, think of them as humans living out in that water, and what diseases that they're getting, the illnesses they're getting, the struggles that they have can also be the same for humans. They eat many of the same foods that we're eating. And so what I'm trying to do with One Health is taking a look at what is draining off into the sound from a water quality standpoint, and what pathogens are potentially going to affect dolphins, and what pathogens could affect humans, and how are our dolphins doing. And so the one thing that dolphins do is they wear their illness on their skin. And so this is a lesion on this particular dolphin here. And so we are, because of our work that's done in captive dolphins, we have an understanding of what certain lesions look like and what pathogen is probably causing that. So by going out and simply looking at the dolphins and taking photos of their skin, we can infer what potentially might be happening. And then we can take a closer look at our water quality. And then dorsal fins work like fingerprints. By taking a really nice clear shot of the dorsal fin, you can start creating a catalog of dolphins. And this has been done in the Sound. This is not something that's new. But it's been done in one-off projects here or there. And so one of the things we really need to do is, this is going to take a lot more than any one person can do. This is a massive effort that needs to be collaborative. And we all need to be, looking at these fins together collectively. And then the other thing that I am doing is looking at healthy microbiomes of dolphin skin. So microbiome, some of you probably, everybody's sort of familiar with it. We are all, basically made up of microbes. Our skin has microbes. We can try to scrub them off, but there's a natural microbiome. And so I have dolphins in captive environments that are trained, and I'm collecting skin samples, and I'm looking at what the natural microbiome is of their skin compared to the water that they're living in. So that water-skin interface is sort of where I am really focusing in on what is happening. What is a natural normal versus when does it start to go bad? And can we predict it based on water? So this is a new project that we're working on. We'll also be testing certain commercial fish as well, looking at microbiomes, just healthy microbiomes. It's a lot. This is a brand new program. I'm still getting started. But this is going to be really helpful. We just received a brand new 34-foot research vessel. Mississippi State now is the proud owner of a offshore capable research vessel. It's going to dock at Shaggy's in Pass Christian. Shaggy's was generous enough to donate the slip. So if you're ever down there, you may see our Mississippi State vessel docked there. And we are so excited to have it be used for collaboration of research. This boat will be able to go to the canyon. It'll be able to go to Chandelier. It'll be able to go, to Mountaintop Bank Reef. We can start to stretch beyond the barrier island. So I'm very excited about this vessel. There it is. And then, of course, ultimately, One Health, we're all connected. We are not standing alone. There is nothing that stands alone in nature, including humans. If our environment is healthy, our wildlife is healthy, then humans are benefiting and they're healthy. If there's something going wrong, then we are going to pay the price as well. So that's where One Health comes into play. And then I've got several projects, and this is again comes back to my ADHD tendencies when it comes to research. I have so many interesting research ideas, but I'm looking again as a whole. So I'm doing some studies with monarch butterflies on our barrier islands. I'm doing studies with North American beavers, again, as an aquatic animal that's living out in the environment, to use them potentially as a model. Flying drones over dolphins to understand their movements, manatees, and then an otter project I don't have time to talk about today, but I actually have a project in Peru with some colleagues down in southern Peru, and there's this very endangered otter, and I had the chance to go down there this past year. We hope to go back, but that is tying into avian flu. Unfortunately, avian flu is our reality. first dolphin stranded in Florida, dead with a confirmed avian flu diagnosis. And so it's happening, it's jumping. And so in Peru, it's already jumped to sea lions, and it is going to, we just don't fully understand how the mammals are going to tolerate it. We have a better understanding of the birds. So lots of exciting projects. And then beavers, again, coming back to the beavers. So this is very random, but during COVID, we can blame COVID, right, for everything. I, like many people, found themselves all of a sudden sitting at home, and I always loved doing wildlife rehab just for fun. Like, I would usually work with a rehabber and say, do you have a critter that you want, help raise? And so I always did raccoons. I would just raise the babies up until they were weaned and then give them back. And like, okay, you can have them back. Well, a rehabber on the coast asked if I would be willing to try beavers, because they're a lot of work. And it turns out they're very dirty and sort of a pain to deal with. I didn't know any better, so I was like, sure, I'll try. I'll take the beavers. So what I didn't know is that I would fall madly, deeply in love with beavers. And I can't fully explain it, except that I realized, I think after spending a lifetime studying marine mammals, where you obsessively look at every behavior, that we haven't really looked at beaver behavior to any great extent, aside from just saying they're a nuisance, they're a pain, they're going to destroy everything, and they're running on instinct. And what I have found them to be is actually pretty interesting social creatures that have a little more going on than just instinct. And I think through studying beavers, we can do better mitigations for landowners who don't want to do lethal force. We might be able to work with the beaver population potentially. But also, I have learned that I have had a couple of beavers with a couple of very interesting illnesses come to me that humans could also get. So an Acintobacter skin infection that could absolutely affect a human, and a parasite infection, a protozoan parasite infection that cause illness. And so I'm looking at it from that perspective as well as a potential source. But in the meantime, if you want super cute videos of beavers, you can go to my YouTube and see cute beaver. But anyway, so there's my email. If anybody has any questions, I know that was a lot, but hopefully.
In one of your displays, you mentioned the whale shark.
Yes. We do have whale sharks in the Gulf. They are big. They are huge. And so what USM has a citizen science project for all the fishermen that are out there. If they ever see a whale shark, they report it back to USM. And so USM has a pretty decent catalog of animals that pretty much live in the northern Gulf, and they're feeding off of, I'm forgetting now. I want to say maybe the tuna spawn is one of their primary sources of food. So during tuna spawns in particular is, yeah.
In one of your displays, you said
Yeah.
Is that a big problem?
I haven't seen it as a one, except for this poor little beaver that came to me with it was basically a necrotizing skin infection. And we were able to give her antibiotics and get her over it, but that was a red flag to me that she had this Acintobacter, that cultured for Acintobacter that was eating away her skin, and she couldn't fight it off. And that is something that it was antibacterial resistant, of course. And so my question was, she picked it up where I was keeping her in the yard, which used to be a small farm in the Turkey Creek watershed, and it makes me want to go, okay, well, we might want to go take a look at what's draining out in that drainage system. So there's a lot of environmental tiebacks as well. Any other questions? Yes.
You mentioned dolphins in the estuary in Louisiana. They do a lot of conversions for land loss and controlling salinity.
Yes.
I've heard the same problem from some of my colleagues. Are there techniques to get them to move?
So the question was the sediment diversion projects that we're trying to build up more land in Louisiana, and it is going to negatively affect dolphin populations there because it's going to change the salinity. It's going to also change the habitat. At this point, no one knows of a effective way to have them move. So the sediment diversion projects actually have they were, I forget the legal terminology, but essentially they were given permission to kill dolphins, which is technically they're protected species. You're not supposed to harm or harass or kill a dolphin. They actually got permission, and they're just decided that these particular dolphin populations will just die out. And that's for the good of Louisiana land. But it is a quagmire. It's a challenging, something to wrap your head around. But I do think that dolphins, one of the things that would be really great to study is to see if they are able to adapt at all and move once that location becomes so uninhabitable. Will they on their own start moving? It's a question we don't know. The question is, how far out does the sound go before it hits Northern Gulf? And essentially, it's the Barrier Islands, and it's approximately 11 miles, just give or take, from shore. And so once you get to 15 miles offshore, you're technically in the Northern Gulf. So.
Do you know if anybody's studying our seagrass beds?
USM seagrass beds, something I'm also very interested in. USM is doing some studies in Chandelier, the seagrass beds there. But from what I understand, there is a little remnant patch of seagrass trying to hold on and right north of Cat Island. And I've actually been out there, and it seems like everyone just sort of shrugs and goes, I guess it's there. But I'm very interested in taking a look at it. So
it's like the manatees.
Right.
What else are they eating?
Right. Yes. So for the manatees, is it worth it to do a little restoration on it? A lot of times it just like, I don't get, my enthusiasm sometimes is met with, I don't know, but I'm very interested in the seagrass, especially knowing and having an understanding of what manatees are eating, whether it be in our bay. They seem to love the industrial canal, and I don't think they love our industrial canal as much as that is one of the more frequented bodies of water where there's always some boat activity, to where they're seen more frequently. But it's fairly consistent that we get sightings of manatees in the industrial canal, and that thing doesn't look like it should have anything. But the manatees are there. So I don't know. Those are some more questions that we need to answer. What did I do in China? So one of my jobs pre-COVID was traveling over to China 4 times a year. I was invited over there to assist with, they have a huge aquarium. They brought me over to say, help us with population management. And so that's the simple version. I got there and realized it's intense. So for all the good that we do here in America, and we pat ourselves on the back, you go over to China and it's like, let's just say China, Africa, Russia, the animal trade between all of them we're doing nothing. We're a drop in the bucket trying to protect something when it comes to that. And so what I went over there thinking, all right, if I can at least reduce some wild collection of a population of animals, maybe I've done some good. I don't know. But what I've learned was this is the first time, this aquarium was one of the first times in China that a Chinese citizen has a chance to view an animal in a conservation light. Animals are lowly, they're to be eaten, they're to be made fun of, they're to wear hats and be silly. But this aquarium built it in a Western style, and they brought me over specifically to make sure that they were following Western protocols. And so it's taken a while. But anyway, 80,000 visitors will go through this aquarium in a day. It's Disney World level of population, and they're going through and they're learning. And I'm from the time I started to now, I have seen such a dramatic change in the appreciation of these animals. They're learning, and some of these wildlife trades are going to end. They're not always just going to be able to go get something from Russia. In fact, Russia has slowed down quite a bit right now. So I am helping them with understanding long-term population management for their collection, so that we can, so that they can continue the work without collecting. The good news is that we've reached a point now, especially with I work with African manatees there. Again, Africa connection. We have a breeding population of African manatees, and so we have more knowledge about African manatees than anyone in the world, and they've given me permission to publish that data. And so that's how I also am like, okay, we can learn a lot from here and pass it along. But this is something that I continue. I go over there 3 times a year still, and I look at it more as now that they're willing to let me publish on this particular species, what else can we publish with? It's a lot. It's a whole thing. But let's just say if ever every American had a chance to go to China, we would all have a very different opinion on what America is or isn't. Just like that. I'm so happy every time I get through customs, get back here. So you're probably talking about SOS, Save Our Sound. Yes. So Save Our Sound is a collaborative group. I try to be collaborative with everyone. They're not directly related to One Health. It's more of they're trying to fight it from a legal standpoint. They have sued Army Corps. They put pressure on different, government groups, and that seems to be where their role has taken. And so they are doing their best to at least hold some folks accountable about it. So I go to their meetings. I've attended some of their meetings, but we're not directly connected. But that Bonnie Carey situation was, dolphins aside, the oyster industry, the fishing industry, and talk about total devastation that no one has ever heard of. Everybody on the coast remembers it, but that's a big deal. It's very serious to many, many ways of life and habitats, and it's time. Mississippi River, it's a long stretch of water, and the fact that the Gulf just gets the brunt of it, it's at least bringing to light some of those challenges, and that modernizing that river is going to be beneficial to the wildlife and the fisheries. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I was happy to be here, and yeah, I'm looking forward to coming back and doing some more work up here. And I'm in this role for 1.5 years, so give me a little bit more time out on that new vessel, and I'll have some awesome stuff, I think, to share. And yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Any more questions? Thank you so much.